So I was told that there was a dress code today. So that's why I'm dressed up.
You look great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. They took the first slide down. Anyway, we'll get past that. This is us. That's how you pronounce that. It's unfortunate. This is Dan.
Yeah. That was actually the name that my dad wanted to give me, Strawberry.
That would have been good. Yeah.
My mom didn't go for it. So.
Anyway, we wanted to start with developers outside of Jack Henry are really making amazing. It was going to be an F, but they changed it to a D. But you guys are making amazing things using the tools here and your own systems.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we see just across. We have a bunch of UI UX teams, and then within our ecosystem, we have things like power-ons and SSOs and the plugin framework. And just the amazing things that you all are building on top of that platform already.
Yep, and that's been moving really fast. So kind of with that speed, you're going to naturally get a lot of things that look a little different. You're going to have all these variations that people have, and I'm sure it's been a pain point for developers who might not be UI side or and just are trying to get it to look like their application. So our first slide that we skipped was making the effing button look the same. So it's basically a scaling opportunity. We started moving real fast, and we've had that churn and the differences. So everyone starts building things from scratch that we could patternize and work together a little bit better on.
Yeah, and one of the places where we saw this the most was actually the plugin framework. So I get a decent amount of customer interaction these days. Greg is here from Georgia United. I remember having a conversation with them about plugins that they were creating, and they would take, get into the developers' tools, steal our CSS, so that they could just get their plugin to look like the rest of the Banno platform plugins.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of things that everyone has to work on that are more complicated. You have to deal with your accessibility, your theming, making sure you have consistency there, and also in a plugin that it looks okay with the rest of the application. So you end up with a variation like this. And our designer Steph came up with this. It's not real, but it's pretty similar. In one area you might have rounded corners. You don't have it over here. It just all looks like a little off.
And this really ends up being a bit of a design problem as well as you try to scale out across a team. You'll get those different variations of buttons because one designer here copied and pasted from a file that existed 3 or 4 years ago when our button corner radius were 5, and now they're 8. But then our engineers are getting into building those systems and saying, I need an override for this button because this says 8, not 5.
Yeah, exactly. So when we started with Banno, one solution we had for this was web components. Web components are a base system you use in HTML and JavaScript, just pure JavaScript to start with. And the simple idea is you have consistent tools that you put on the page, and you wrapped up and composed your styling, your functionality in a repeatable way. So that button becomes something that you ship and reproduce in different places, and that variation doesn't continue everywhere. If you want to change the rounded corners, you change it for everywhere at once.
You mentioned we're building that up off of web components. Why not take a framework that exists today like React or Angular, which is about to go away, or Vue, and build our system off of something like that instead?
Yeah, that's a great question. So those frameworks often give you architectural kind of bloat at the beginning. You have to kind of adopt everything with Angular or React. Your bundles get larger, and your update cycles increase dramatically. So with Angular, at a previous job, I was on Angular 1, and I can't remember, but it's double digits now what Angular has gotten to. So what we use is web components with the lit library. And lit was a library, I can't remember if it's the next one, yep. It's a lightweight framework on top, or not framework, excuse me, library on top of web components to add speed and abilities. But basically, we have code in Bano that existed the first day, and it's still there, and it can be side by side with things that are more modern without us having to go through a main update cycle.
An early predecessor to Lit was Polymer. Why didn't we just stick with Polymer?
Yeah, Polymer was the first iteration from Google, and it actually kind of transferred into Lit. So we still have some Polymer code that we're pulling out these days, but it doesn't interfere. A web component that you build in Lit could be dropped in a React or an Angular project. So it really gives you the freedom to build something and use it anywhere.
One of the things that I really want to highlight at this point too is that sort of accessible by default layer. One thing that's really important to us is that not only our developers, but then also the folks building on top of our platform, they don't have to think and obsess over accessibility the way that we do. When a button comes out of the box, it should be accessible out of the box. When we are using a component like an input component, that you don't have to sit there and sweat all the small details about accessibility, making sure you're up to the current WCAG standards, making sure you're not at any liability from a legal standpoint. Like, we're trying to take care of all of that for you as well, all the way down into the tokening system to ensure that colors are visible at the standards they need to be, that our text sizes are coming across the proper sizes, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and to get real nerdy technical for a second, nice thing about web components is called Shadow DOM. Essentially, to control that your styling and your theming have stayed consistent in there. So you don't have a CSS sheet in another area applying something down into your button and causing problems. The theme is where we make our changes. So we have tokens that go through, and it allows us to use the same components for the consumer side as well as the admin and even new products that come along. So that all culminated in the Jack Henry design system, a set of really hardened components and styles that the team here has come up with to provide that accessibility and the consistent patterning and just a good foundation for your accessible applications.
Yeah, again, what we're really trying to hit here is just having, a system that works across the entirety of our ecosystem, from everything from Bano Online, Bano Admin, all the way into like our treasury components and the platform components. You saw folks up here earlier today talking about Jack Henry wires. They're able to utilize the same design system when they build UIs. Trying to make sure that we bring that cohesion to the entire platform.
That's a great point. Yeah, we're trying to allow the teams working on that stuff to pick up these Lego blocks, basically, and apply the same patterns. Think about the tasks the user's doing, and that might be the same in wires, or it might be similar in ACH. And we want the system to look the same so that the user knows where they are, they know the experience, and isn't confused when they get to another application.
One thing that's important to know that we're talking about right now, specifically today, is that we're talking about our web platform more than anything. So we do have in the Bano ecosystem, we have native mobile applications as well. These components, while some of our content there is web content, a lot of it's native application content, and so we're not necessarily talking about a system that is going to look the exact same across all of those properties. We do leverage the native environments on mobile to really make sure that in those environments the applications actually feel at home, and that's something that we're trying to strive for, is that everything should feel at home, but you're able to accomplish all the same functionality across all three.
So yeah, getting back to the button idea, it's kind of an easy example of the differences you have. You might have all these styles that you are applying to your button, and using a web component, you have options. You're not limited to one button. The button has various appearances, but it's a much simpler tool to utilize and get you creating UI faster.
Yeah, and this doesn't come without flexibility either. So, because it's a web component, we have things like slot areas where you can customize a button to have an icon and decide where that icon is going to live in the button, titles as well. And as Chris already said, like, we have multiple styles that you can apply, different states, such as like being able to show a destructive button or get across via state your disabled state or a busy state to show a progress spinner, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you worked in early HTML, your considerations were the hover state or the focus state, all those things that we all had to do. And the alternative other end of it was to pick up a framework, but here with web components, you can do this in a fashion that doesn't tie up the rest of your page. And as web components get more natively adopted in the browser, we will jettison lit as need to and build everything just in pure JavaScript, CSS, and HTML.
The great thing about a system like that as well is that we can compose larger units over time. And so while the design system that we have today is we really see it as kind of the core foundational system. It has all of the basic elements that you might need to build a UI. We can invest in that over time. It's called an atomic design system. So we have the atoms right now. We can build molecules. We can build organisms, build up broader patterns that your teams can leverage as well to get that exact same look and feel, same behavior, that sort of thing. Absolutely.
And so the design system is an NPM package that is available. Anyone could use it. It doesn't have to be a Jack Henry product. Anyone can go out to NPM and get it. Along with that, we built a couple tools to help people get started and then to build things for their consumer and their admin apps. So I pre-recorded a screen video, and I'll try to keep pace with it. I'll probably fail. But the first one is we have a developer sandbox out there, and I'll have the links at the end. But I walked through really quick, pulling that down, cloning the repo. So it's out at JH Consumer App Tools. And this just imports the design system packages. There's themes, there's components, and there's icons that are all built together to make your app. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the developer sandbox that's in the repo, cloning it, and going over to it. I don't know what my own speed was, but yeah. So I'm opening it up, and as a front-end developer, when I open up a repo, the first thing I do is I go to the package.json and figure out what I'm pulling in. So using NPM or Yarn, you install your dependencies, which are mostly the Jack Henry design system that I mentioned. And I can't type. There we go. So this sandbox we had was a way we wanted to show you how you can easily start it up in the base theme that it has, but also apply institution themes to it. And you could, using the documentation there, you could make a theme for whatever you'd like. But it defines your primary buttons, your brand colors, and then that stuff cascades down to the components themselves. So here on this page, I'm using a card. I always open up dev tools, of course. But we have cards, we have lists, and these different elements in a lit component are reactive to the state changes automatically. They're very easy to update your state. So here I've just got an example of maybe a card where I'm disputing a charge. So that, I mean, I've been working with them for a while. It only took me 5 minutes to throw it together, but they're very easy to work in, and that's just a couple components on a page. I guess I was showing the styling, and yeah, I can get deeper into a cool thing about lit is you define properties, and it automatically handles your re-renders based on those properties. So within your app, if you are changing things, your your UI will update automatically. And if anyone has worked in JavaScript, that is kind of a thing you have to manage intentionally if you're going with pure JavaScript. Sorry, I missed this step. You can also run it with an institution ID, like Matt Kerner mentioned earlier. If you have your institution's ID, this developer sandbox will go out and grab that theme. So it's applied the DevBank theme here to my card. So I could test this with any institution's theme that I wanted. If I was a fintech working on a plugin or an embedded app, it'd be a useful tool to test my code out as I go. Just checking. OK, the next one, real quick, is when you advance past that, and you might want to use the auth and things that Matt Kerner mentioned earlier, we have another sandbox where you give the same stuff you would for a plugin that our teams can help you with. Your institution ID, your client ID, the secret, and the login path, everything that today is required for the plugin. But it will actually create an application for you, scaffold it, that could be dropped into a website and be linked to from your Banno Online or your Banno apps. So when it gets loaded, it's actually going to make the auth calls that it needs to draw the actual Banno Online navigation menu and have the exact look and feel as if it is actually part of Banno Online.
Yeah, now this does leverage our external applications functionality that already exists. So one of the little bit of nuances here is that your external application does have to use one of our existing links and be made visible publicly for that to show up in the Banno environment.
There you go. So now I'm locally logging in using that login URL. It is making the calls it needs to populate my Banno Online menu. But on the other side, anything to the side of that, I'm not going to say right, left or right, that is your application. That entire shell is what you could produce. So you could really, you have the tools to make something with an SSO that look and feel exactly like the Banno application.
Yeah, and really live in that same environment. So if we were to navigate to the dashboard here, that would be the Banno dashboard. You continue to have, in this case, that link is JR testing. If you were to head back to the accounts section under there, you'd be back in your app. And that's this concept, again, is what we're calling embedded apps.
So the last example I have, because I feel like AI needs to be touched in everything, is earlier in a presentation, he mentioned using AI to build his application. And as we all know, AI is as good as the instructions and the context you give it. Well, the nice thing about the web component library, and you'll find it from jackhenry.design, or .dev, excuse me, is that we have documentation on every component in there and every variation that you could create. And it's easy to build those into skills that something like Claude or Gemini could use. And we have made some skills around it that we're working on sharing. But you can even have it scrape the website to get there. So in the next one, I started with a blank dashboard. I just took everything out of that page. And just to show you what a skill looks like, it's just Markdown explaining the links and what the different components are like. So this scraped the button through the card, the list, everything we have, and the different icons. And I'm just showing that this is Copilot. You can use this anywhere. I've turned on my GitHub skills from my repo. And then this is my prompt. I'm just asking it to build me 4 cards. One of them is going to be an overdrawn account list. The other's users I might be joint on accounts with. There's a support card, and I forget the last one. But it's just going off. I told it to use the design system to build me those structures and to put them into lit components. And like with anything, you're going to have to check it. But I find if you wire it up with mock data first, if you know your model, you feed it your model as another scale of what the API is going to give you. And then you could go on to wiring up the the API fetch requests to work with that. So in here, it's created 4 different components, lit components, utilizing the design system, and now it's telling me about what it did. And yeah, we'll take a look at what it spit out. I guess. Oh, there we go. Okay, so without any long-winded explanation to it in my prompt, it created these different cards. So, oh yeah, the last one was I asked it to make an offer for a high-yield checking account and a contact form. So you can really see that because web components are so structured and documented, that you can utilize them with these agentic tools to help you build faster.
Yeah, the thing I really wanted to highlight here was it really is kind of that intersection where we've made sure to document, provide copious amounts of documentation for the web components. We've seen with agentic coding tools that the more documentation you provide, even though the LLM hasn't been trained on that particular set of data, it can still infer very well and actually, create very good-looking UIs that just leverage everything that we've built. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so yeah, just our takeaways are, with all the API tools that we have at Jack Henry and you have elsewhere, we just want to provide the tools to make the actual UI consistent and scalable. You might come up with a product at your FI or a plugin that might be utilized at a different FI, and they could simply change out their theme if you gave it to them.
Yep, and again, one other takeaway for y'all here today is that, again, we've built sort of the core componentry of this. We'll be continuing to invest in it over time, providing more components, providing some of those molecules that build up common components into other elements and that sort of thing. We'll just continually evolve the system over time.
Yep. Yeah, we're excited to continue to use these components in all of our applications. We have them in Treasury, we have them in Wires, which was brought up earlier. We're going to have an actual platform of visual patterns. And as we do so, more things will become open source and available for everyone. Then this will be part of everything, but yeah, jackhenry.design or dev, they both get you to the same place. And then I can share this for anyone that doesn't have it now, but the branch for the demo or anyone in the DevRails team can help you get there. That's us. If you have any questions, I used to have a mustache. It looked weird. Thanks.
Thank you all.